Good morning to all of you. I'm Mithila Mendis. I'm going to talk to you about a subject which I know very little about. Once upon a time, Theodore Roosevelt made this statement: the nation behaves well if it treats the natural resources as assets, which it must turn over to the next generation, increased and not impaired in value. How I wish our leaders had that fortitude. Well, I live in hope that the next generation will have that fortitude. So, talking about our resources, it's important to talk about how you build something. So, if you were to build even a commercial enterprise or a nation, it will rely on several key factors, amongst which access to resources and assets, human capital, and proximity to market are key. So what does Sri Lanka have? Well, we have 20 million people who I'm pretty sure are very trainable. We have resources which we will talk about. And if you want to know about the location, just take a world map and see where Sri Lanka is. Here's a fun fact. Every year, 60,000 ships traverse the ocean 10 nautical miles south of Sri Lanka. We are, even today, the 24th busiest port in the Lloyd's Register. We used to be the 13th busiest port way back in 1980s. I don't know what happened for us to go down that scale. So on the subject of natural resources, let's look at how we classify them. So on the grouping on the left consists of natural ecosystem resources required to ensure that Sri Lanka continues to be a habitable and fertile land. These resources are given very little attention by the public, but have great consequences in the face of current climate changes and impending global water crisis. The discussion of the amazing biodiversity in Sri Lanka, the 30% forest cover, the abundant water supply per capita. By the way, that stands at 2,400 cubic meters per year per capita today, is of vital importance, and a detailed consideration is required. We will not delve deeper into these resources in today's discussion, but will be a matter of focus in our future action plans. The group on the right identifies key resources that have direct impact on the development actions taken by Sri Lanka, and we will focus on this in today's discussion. So let's move on to minerals. Although Sri Lanka is relatively a small country, we are blessed with a wide spectrum of minerals which can be utilized for our development. The key aspect to remember with minerals, it's a finite resource. So optimizing its extraction and sustainable use of it is of immense importance. Sri Lanka's mineral resources include graphite, ilmenite, rutile, zircon, quartz, feldspar, clay, kaolin, apatite, which is a phosphate rock, and rich industrial minerals including silica sand, garnet sand, mica, calcite, and dolomite. The graphite found in Sri Lanka has a purity level over 99%. And today, we sell about 300 to 400 tons of this mineral in its raw form at a rate of about $1,000 to $1,300 per ton. On the flip side, graphene, when it's derived from this mineral, which is used today in electronics, energy, biomedical, and a wide range of areas fetches a price of about $150,000 of 150,000 to 175,000 US dollars per ton. The demand for graphene is expected to grow exponentially within the next few decades. I would like to raise a question of what is the loss of benefit to the country by not pushing the value add? Or is there a deal to sell the current assets in its current form for the benefit of a few? The Pulmude beach sand deposits in Sri Lanka is the most important non-ferrous mineral reserve so far. The deposit contains minerals including titanium, one of the world's most expensive and highly sought-after materials, large concentration of ilmenite and rutile are found in Pulmude beach sand deposits. Several other coastal mineral sand deposits such as monazite, zircon, garnet, and ilmenite are found in different parts of the island. Is Sri Lanka gaining maximum potential through these resources? I think the next speaker will portray a case study of how such resources are being exploited with little gain to Sri Lanka and with disastrous effects to the natural ecosystem. The world's rarest gems are found in this land. Our annual turnover is approximately $275 million. Whereas Thailand, on the other hand, which imports our gems, has a export market of over $3 billion annually. Whereas our neighbor also India earns about $400 million, annually from gem exports. The country's natural resources include other valuable economic mineral reserves, such as apatite, rock phosphate. It's estimated that there is a reserve of 60 million tons of this mineral, which is used for production, a type of phosphate fertilizer suitable for crops such as tea, rubber, and coconut. Maximizing the value add will reduce forex demand for the import of fertilizer. While the rich deposits of various types of clay have been used for many industries such as porcelainware, bricks, molding, etc., citizens need to be aware of the true value and demand for maximal benefit to the country. Do we know this? Do we have any idea how we can better use these finite resources? And that's a question I think each one of us need to be actively engaged in if we are to achieve that potential for our country. Let's move on to another resource where there is a potential of petroleum. We are not going to talk too much about it, but based on initial data, it is estimated that the Mana Basin alone has a potential to generate 5 billion barrels of oil and 9 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Of course, this is undersea exploration, so it becomes commercially viable only at times when the commercial value of these hydrocarbons, like today, is a market price. So I think in today's context, again, what is the knowledge that we as citizens have about this real potential of this asset, and how do we look at maximizing the potential for our benefit? Moving on, if you talk about energy, as you know, you suffer a couple of hours of blackouts every day, so I think that should be a very appropriate thing to talk about. Our main sources of energy that we have are hydro, solar, wind, and biomass. The major hydropower projects have almost been completed, whereas we have a potential of about 870 megawatts of mini hydro projects, of which we have only executed about 253 megawatts. In time when we have so many power cuts, I guess every megawatt counts. Derived out of the Asian monsoon system, which provides the wind capacity, it is estimated that we have about 5,600 megawatts of wind energy. And we have deployed a minute portion of that. The story of solar energy is very similar, where we are estimated to possess a capacity of approximately 6,000 megawatts of photovoltaic capacity using 1% of the land mass. The current utilization is minuscule. This is not even taking into consideration new techniques such as float solar and so on. This topic of renewable energy has a lot of connotations and controversies, including limitations on network and load capacity synchronization. But have we really looked at the ultimate potential that we can gain out of these resources? Well, we as citizens, I think, are in the dark. Finally, the biomass. We use approximately about 9 million tons for domestic use, mainly for cooking and other heating purposes, and of about 4 million tons of biomass per year for industrial use. It's said that the potential of energy generation is about 2.3 gigawatts, or 2,300 megawatts. And on the unexplored front, we have identified 14 sites for wave energy, a few sites for geothermal, and minerals that can be used for nuclear fuel. Well, we have identified this, but what are we doing about it? Are our officials, our elected representatives, making a true effort? Or the monopolies that run this energy industry being pushed to its limit to question the viabilities of what we need to be doing? Well, let's move on. Another subject of resources is the coastal and mineral resources. With a 1,600-kilometer coastal area, approximately 250,000 people whose livelihood dependent on this is also supporting approximately 1 million of our population. Sri Lanka has rights to a unique economic ocean area, which is 8 times the size of our landmass. Due to the 32 main and sub-main rivers flowing from land, our ocean region is abundant with minerals. Due to the proximity to the equator, the water temperature also allows our resource of tuna to be one of the most tastiest in the world. In fact, in the last year, we were the second largest importer of tuna to Europe. We gained, to Europe's import, our export. We exported 24,000 metric tons of this fish and fisheries product to Europe and gained $287 million of revenue. However, even as we speak, the Indian and Chinese trawlers are scraping at the bottom of this ocean, ruining the resources, the ecosystem that supports such an abundant resource. Against this, the fisheries community in the north has been engaged in a struggle on a day-to-day basis. Have we held the powers to be accountable in promoting our interests? That's a question for us to ask ourselves. And finally, I'd like to talk about the human resources of Sri Lanka. A very apt description of where our human resources are at the moment. The human capital is probably the most underutilized resource in Sri Lanka. A 22 million population located in a landmass which yields a population density very close to Japan has not been guided, harnessed over several decades. Why do I say that? Well, any industry senior will agree with me that most human resources are trainable and coachable in the current environment and context. The education system, while initially set up with a great structure, fails to produce skills and attitudes which are needed in today's world. The brain drain has been a discussion point since I can remember, and that goes down several decades. But I'm yet to see an action plan on that. And now in year 2022, we have opened the floodgates. Reports indicate that almost 32 people, trained persons, leave our shores every hour. Let's work the numbers. That's about 250,000 a year of resources that I've gained from a free education system, on-the-job training, and great potential. Let's put some figures onto this. Let me use an arbitrary figure like 150,000 rupees of cost to the nation of a person that leaves the country, which is really absurd because it's under $500 today. But when you multiply that number, it stands at a whopping 420 billion rupees of cost to this nation every year. That's $1 billion, more than $1 billion every year. Well, we need a bridging loan for that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the plight that we are in today. The IT industry is one of the sectors that has suffered most. Well, I do not know how many of you in this audience will be here next year. This, my friend, is the reality of it. Aside from all of these resources, as you know, we have been very, very generous with the resources we have in our ports, airports, shipping ports, which we have been able to give away to other foreign entities at fire sale prices almost, without a proper evaluation and a very short-sighted deal where they are benefiting out of these resources. So the requirement to hold our elected and appointed officials accountable to gain maximum utility to our resources is of dire need. What I have presented here today is probably the tip of the iceberg. Ladies and gentlemen, as a first step, we need to define this iceberg. Thank you.